Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. Today we bring you some news. At 86, Andrew Parker Bowles' shocking confession over Camilla's betrayal and manipulation after Prince William cut financial support. According to an interview, Andrew Parker Bowles is the first person to expose the truth about his connection with Queen Camilla. This revelation of Andrew Parker Bowles comes after Prince William took a daring step to prevent him from attending an event hosted by the royal family and to cut off financial assistance from the Duchy of Cornwall. According to the statement made by Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla managed to maintain her mouth for a number of years in order to obtain the title of Queen. What is really going on, as well as the reason why Andrew Parker Bowles is making this discovery regarding Camilla, will be revealed to us in this video. A re-examination of the story of Andrew Parker Bowles and the development of a queen is presented in The Silent Man. There are some individuals who are meant to be in the limelight within the big and often turbulent theater that is the British monarchy, while other individuals are doomed to stay permanently in the wings, their tales being absorbed by the larger drama. Brigadier Andrew Parker Bowles has been the epitome of a guy who lives in the background of a royal tale for close to 30 years now. When Prince Charles's marriage to the woman who had been Camilla Shand for 21 years ended in divorce in 1995, the world did not see it as the dissolution of a partnership that had lasted for 21 years. Rather, it was seen as the inevitable clearing of a route for Prince Charles. In addition to being straightforward and captivating, the story was a perfect match for the sad fairy tale that Charles, Diana, and the third person in their marriage experienced. The character of the respectable if mistreated spouse who stood aside with calm resignation was portrayed by Andrew Parker Bowles throughout the production. Over the course of over 30 years, he has maintained his silence constantly, which has enabled this interpretation of history to become a widely acknowledged truth. There has never been a time when he has publicly challenged the lady who went from being his wife to Her Majesty, the Queen, never given an interview in which he revealed everything, and never written a book that is angry. Assuming, however, that the quiet in question was not an acknowledgement of defeat. Imagine for a moment if it was hiding a narrative that was far more intricate and intimate than the well-known story of a love triangle. A closer investigation of their shared past, drawing from documented biographical narratives and the social environment of their period, implies a different narrative despite the fact that there has been no recent public disclosure of the circumstances surrounding their relationship. It proposes that the dissolution of the Parker-Bowles marriage was not only the result of an old flame being reignited, rather it was the outcome of a deep and shocking metamorphosis that took place inside Camilla herself. In this alternative interpretation of history, it is suggested that the man who lived through it all was not merely witnessing his wife leave him for a prince. Rather, he was witnessing the ambitious and calculated forging of a future queen, a process that fundamentally altered the woman he had married and rendered their union unsustainable. It is not the tale of the guy who lost his wife to the heir to the kingdom. Rather, it is the story of the man who saw his wife transform into a figure that he could no longer recognize. This transformation was brought about by a destiny that did not have any place for the life that they had made together. The elite high society environment of London in the 1960s, when a handsome army officer and a lively debutante initially attracted each other's attention, is the starting point for understanding the conclusion. This world seems to be a planet apart from the one we are now living in. The two most beautiful people of a bygone era. During the latter half of the 1960s, Andrew Parker Bowles and Camilla Shand were popular among the members of their aristocratic family. It seemed as if their relationship was predestined due to their social standing, connections, and charm. He was a guy whose genealogy was linked with the fabric of the British aristocracy, and he was the attractive and self-assured commander who served in the Blues and Royals. His father, Derek Parker Bowles, was among the Queen Mother's most trusted friends. At the time of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, Andrew himself had served as a page boy. He was personable, athletic, and a brilliant polo player. Additionally, he exhibited an easy confidence that made him a compelling presence at any social event. In addition, Camilla Shand, who was the daughter of Major Bruce Shand and the Honorable Rosalind Cubitt, had a strong network of connections. Her background was flawless, despite the fact that she was not a titled noble. The earthy humor, contagious laugh, and down-to-earth confidence that she had set her apart from other debutantes. She was not renowned for her timidity, but rather for her earthy wit and infectious laugh. She walked through the rigid, upper-class environment with a refreshing lack of pretension, and she was delightful to be around. She was genuine and unabashedly herself. Penny Junor, a biographer, referred to her as overwhelmingly popular, describing her as a young lady who was loved by women and appealing to men. A drama that was played out at polo matches at Smith's Lawn Country Home weekends and elite London nightclubs like Annabelle's, their on-again, off-again romance that was a mainstay of the social pages, was a drama that was played out at these events. They emerged as a dangerous adversary, according to all reports. The countryside horses and the special kind of social life that characterized their group were all things that both of them had a deep appreciation for. Nevertheless, even in these early stages, the foundations for future issues were already being laid. The partnership was renowned for the way in which Andrew's wandering eye interrupted it. It was common knowledge that he was a ladies' man, and members of his inner circle considered it to be an almost inevitable aspect of his demeanor. Camilla's tendency of infidelity would cause her a great deal of emotional distress and result in a number of breakups from her relationships. During one of these off times, which occurred in 1971, Camilla was officially presented to the young Prince of Wales. This event took place. The occurrence, which is said to have taken place during a polo tournament, has become legendary. According to legend, Camilla began her speech with the following line: "My great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-great-grandfather." Camilla was known for her forthright and straightforward manner. I believe we have something in common. Whether apocryphal or not, the remark captures the essence of their immediate connection, a shared sense of humor, a relaxed intimacy, and a deep understanding of the world they both inhabited. There was a striking contrast between the formalities that ruled the rest of the prince's life and the intense affection that developed between him and the lady he found to be so easy to be with because of their relationship. On the other hand, the road to the throne was a crooked one. At the time, Camilla was not seen as a desirable prospective spouse for the monarch who would one day rule. The fact that she did not come from a suitably high-ranking aristocratic family was another factor that contributed to her lack of apparent virginity, which was a harsh but essential need at the time. The window of possibility was closed when Charles left for a tour of duty with the Royal Navy that lasted for 8 months in the beginning of 1973 without making a confirmed commitment. Andrew Parker Bowles made his proposal to Camilla while he was away, and it is possible that he was motivated to do so by the mounting pressure from both families to finally resolve the issue. The wedding that took place in July of 1973 was the most fashionable event of the year. There were notable guests in attendance, including Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother Princess Anne, and Princess Margaret. The event was held in the Guards' Chapel, which is located within Wellington Barracks. As they entered a life of affluence and promise, the pair gave off the impression of being the epitome of happiness in the upper-class world. After settling down, they raised their 2 children, Tom and Laura, in Middlewick House, which was located in Middlewick Manor, which was located in Wiltshire. As far as the outside world was concerned, they were known as the Parker Bowleses. They were a well-respected military family that was deeply rooted in the royal circle and had a life that consisted of activities of the countryside, dinner parties, and official obligations. Both Camilla and Andrew's home and social lives were successfully handled by Camilla, while Andrew's military career blossomed. In many respects, they were a successful partnership in comparison to the norms of their genre and the era in which they lived. In addition to the cracks in the facade, there is an unspoken arrangement. Despite the fact that their married life seemed to be perfect, the same difficulties continued to exist under the surface. Several biographers and acquaintances have said that the marriage was a mutually beneficial arrangement that took into account the facts of both of their personalities and the social situation in which they found themselves. The fact that Andrew was married did not put an end to his infidelity. And part of their lives that was understood, however unsaid, was this. Even within their aristocratic circle, they were often allowed a certain amount of leeway in things of this kind, provided that they kept their looks. The emotional connection that existed between Camilla and Prince Charles was never completely destroyed, which has an added significance. Despite the fact that she was now Mrs. Parker Bowles, she continued to be the prince's most trusted confidant and closest friend. However, Andrew was not unaware of this fact. He was also a friend of the prince, which was an odd twist of social entanglement that he had found himself in. Charles was a frequent guest at their house, and he was even given the honor of being called the godfather of their son Tom. As members of the same social web, the three were entangled with one another. The delicate equilibrium was maintained for many years. It seemed as if Andrew was content with his wife's deep and one-of-a-kind relationship with the Prince of Wales, despite the fact that he had his own life and had his own dalliances. Due to the fact that it strengthened their standing among the most prestigious circles, there are others who have indicated that he was even proud of the link. Despite the odd nature of the setup, it seemed to be effective. As a result of Prince Charles's marriage to Lady Diana Spencer in 1981, the balance was completely thrown off equilibrium. The fairy tale wedding brought a new component into the mix that was very precarious from the beginning. Camilla, the one person who had always provided him with unconditional understanding and emotional relief, became more important to Charles as he became stuck in a marriage with a woman he hardly knew and with whom he had very few things in common. Around the year 1986, the affair which had been dormant for some time was rekindled. The situation was different this time. It had evolved from a simple platonic relationship or a young romance into an emotional lifeline for a future king who was experiencing a great deal of unhappiness. There was a change in the dynamic that existed inside the Parker Bowles home. As the weight of this deepened connection increased, the peaceful understanding that had previously ruled their marriage began to erode and become more difficult to maintain. For Andrew, the situation was slowly but surely becoming intolerable. Tolerance of a friendship or even the specter of a previous romantic relationship within the framework of his circle's moral rules that were open to interpretation was one thing. It was an altogether another matter to discover that his residence and his wife were located at the geographical center of a growing royal problem. It would have been impossible to ignore the signs, the covert late-night phone calls that would later become notorious due to the tapes that were released as part of the Camilla-gate scandal. The meticulously coordinated schedules that were used to facilitate covert meetings, and the emotional and physical absence of his wife as she devoted herself to comforting the prince. In this point, the story of Camilla's change starts to take shape and become more interesting. According to the allegations, Andrew Parker Bowles was not only a witness to a shift that was brought about by adultery. This marked a significant change in his wife's personality, as well as her concentration and her aspirations. On the other hand, the freewheeling and earthy lady who had formerly scoffed at the stuffiness of the institution was transforming into something quite different, creating a royal consort. Through the process of transformation, the War of the Waleses came into public exposure in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and Camilla Parker Bowles was thrown from the relative obscurity of the aristocracy into the harsh light of worldwide notoriety as a result of this. It was said that she was the person responsible for Princess Diana's suffering, the Rottweiler, and the person who ruined marriages. It was a tremendous amount of pressure that never let up. A less capable individual may have withdrawn, having been shattered by the hatred of the people and the invasive scrutiny of the media. Despite this, Camilla did not falter. Instead, those who had a close relationship with her said that she became more resolute. She adapted to the situation. As a result of the circumstances, she was required to acquire a new set of talents, and she started working on developing them with a level of concentration and drive that would have surprised many who knew her the best, including her husband. According to the hypothetical tale which was put together from the fringes of history, Andrew is said to have seen the gradual and purposeful transformation of the lady he married. A clever strategist took the place of the laid-back country wife who had been replacing her. At this point, it was no longer about love or comfort. Rather, it was about surviving and perhaps an aim for the long run. This shift was shown in a number of different ways. Mastery of the system. The lady who had previously admitted to having a contempt for power games and etiquette started to become proficient in the exact system that she had previously taken offense at. She began to have a better grasp on the workings of the media and the monarchy eventually. Through her research, she was able to identify the most influential individuals inside the palace, as well as the influential courtiers and journalists who could be manipulated. It was said that there were confidential talks with press officers and strategic experts, all of which were in an effort to successfully navigate the perilous seas of public opinion. She was no longer only the prince's mistress, rather she was evolving into his silent collaborator and main strategist in a campaign for their future together. Camilla, who was known for her funny and impulsive nature, was replaced by a lady who had an amazing amount of self-control and studied composure. A mask of unflappable prudence was the one she wore when she was in public. She never reacted to the assaults, never provided an explanation, and never voiced any complaints. The behavior in question was not that of a helpless victim, but rather that of someone who was playing a long game, someone who was aware that any emotional outburst would be a mistake that would have grave consequences. If Andrew had been there, he would have seen this shift firsthand. The transition from an easygoing and open discourse to one that was guarded and marked by a new, vigilant intensity. A change in priorities. The core of her world underwent a change that could not be reversed. Her family, her house in Wiltshire, and her own social circle were no longer the focal points of her life as they had been in the past. At this point, it was fully devoted to Charles and the extraordinary difficulty of establishing their position together. The result was that her marriage to Andrew turned out to be nothing more than a sham. As her relationship with the prince progressed, their house became less of a shared refuge and more of a handy base of operations for her activities. The straightforward closeness, the jokes they told each other, and the entire foundation of their relationship all fell apart. He was, in fact, living with a woman who had already disintegrated emotionally and mentally, her energies being devoured by a far more ambitious and perhaps hazardous aspiration. For Andrew Parker Bowles, this must have been an event that left him severely estranged from others. As well as being romantic, the betrayal was also existential in nature. The person with whom he had shared a life for 20 years was undergoing a transformation right in front of his eyes, becoming someone who was driven by forces that he could neither contribute to nor compete with. The problem was no longer just Charles. It was the all-consuming desire to be with Charles, a mission that forced Camilla to become a new person because it required her to become more resilient, more calculating, and more focused on power than she had ever been before. Not only was he losing his wife, but he was also losing the fundamental essence of the life that they had always enjoyed together. In the performance of the play that was her royal destiny, he had become a supporting actor. There is a peaceful conclusion and the dignity of silence. As early as the 1990s, the situation had reached an unsustainable level. As a result of the release of Andrew Morton's Diana, Her True Story in 1992, the whole world was exposed to the truth. This was followed by the Camilla Gate video scandal in 1993 and Prince Charles's televised admission of adultery in 1994. The Parker Bowles marriage, which had already been deteriorating from the inside out, was no longer able to face the strain from the public. The couple made the announcement that they intended to divorce in January of 1995. The message was kind, succinct, and devoid of any dramatic elements. Their divergent passions and the fact that they had been leading mainly independent lives were also brought up in the conversation. It was a lesson in caution, which stood in striking contrast to the public misery that the Waleses experienced as a result of their separation. In March of 1995, the divorce was finalized in a manner that was surprising in its quickness and quietness. A scorned spouse did not engage in any acrimonious recriminations, public fights over assets, or interviews in which he divulged all of his secrets. It was as if Andrew Parker Bowles had suddenly disappeared from the spotlight. It was a complete and unshakable quiet on his part. How come it's possible that a number of other things led to this polite departure? In the first place, there was the issue of social standing and morality. Men of his upbringing and military experience were conditioned to handle private problems with secrecy and a stiff upper lip. He went through this conditioning without question. An act that was performed in front of the public would have been seen as a blatant breach of character. In the second place, there was the problem of safeguarding his children, Tom and Laura. Even though they had many problems in their marriage, he and Camilla continued to be together as parents. It would have been horrible for them to go through a nasty and public divorce, and both of them were determined to protect them from experiencing any more stress. In the third place, and probably most importantly, there existed an implicit arrangement with the royal establishment. Andrew Parker Bowles was a guy who was devoted to the crown, and he continues to be so now. It would have been very unacceptable to him to be responsible for a scandal that would have caused more harm to the monarchy, especially at such a turbulent time period. It was not just an act of personal dignity for him to remain silent. It was also an act of obligation to the organization that his family had contributed to for many generations. By maintaining his silence, he made it possible for the straightforward and romantic story to take root. It was simpler for the general population to comprehend a narrative about a profound and all-encompassing love than it was to comprehend the more unpleasant narrative about ambition and change. He was content with his position as the forgotten guy, the collateral damage in a love tale that would be remembered for generations to come. An examination of discretion based on life after Camilla. During the years that followed, Andrew Parker Bowles discreetly rebuilt his life, avoiding the scrutiny of the media, which continued to be preoccupied with Charles and Camilla during their relationship. In 1996, he tied the knot with Rosemary Pittman, a friend of his, for many years. All indications point to the fact that their marriage was a joyful and secure one that lasted till her passing away from cancer in the year 2010. In the same manner that he had done in the past, he resumed his life devoting himself to his family, his friends, and his interests in the country. His relationship with his ex-wife was very polite and even affectionate during their time together. Camilla and he were often spotted attending family gatherings together, including the wedding of their daughter Laura in the year 2006. In 2005, he even made the extraordinary decision to attend the wedding of Prince Charles and Camilla, a display of magnanimity that left many onlookers in a state of shock, but was quite consistent with his personality. Additionally, his ties to the royal family remained strong. His friendship with Princess Anne, with whom he had a love relationship when he was younger, continues to this day. He is a frequent visitor at Royal Ascot, where he is often seen having a good time with his ex-wife, who is now the Queen. Perhaps the most persuasive indication that their split was about more than mere betrayal is the fact that there was very little animosity between them. It is a sign that they both came to terms with the reality that their lives had taken a fundamental and irreversible turn, and that they had come to terms with the fact that their paths had split. The fact that he has continued to live his life after the divorce is evidence of his discretion. The never-ending flood of royal biographies has never turned to him as a source of information. He has never made any attempt to benefit on his exceptional place in the annals of history. With a stillness that is both deep and revealing, he has carried the knowledge of what he observed, which included the dissolution of his marriage and the formation of a bride who would one day become queen. The man who experienced everything. Conclusion. In the present day, Queen Camilla is standing next to King Charles III, marking the culmination of her long and arduous journey from mistress to ruler. Her public image has been methodically rebuilt from that of a homewrecker to that of a faithful and supporting consort. She has been hailed for her kindness, her perseverance, and her unwavering service. Regarding this new chapter, the majority of people throughout the globe have embraced it. However, acknowledgement of the quiet guy who stands at the beginning of this tale is necessary in order to provide a whole picture. The narrative may be re-examined via the lens of Andrew Parker Bowles, which provides a viewpoint that is more complex and perhaps more true. The naive concept that he was only a placeholder spouse who was abandoned when the prince was fully free is called into question by this. Instead, it creates a picture of a guy who was a partner in a true marriage, although one that had its flaws, but who was forced to leave his marriage not just because of an old love, but also because of the tectonic forces of monarchical destiny. Based on the narrative, it seems that he did not lose his wife in a single act of treachery, but rather via a slow and purposeful process of metamorphosis. This occurred as Camilla remade herself into the woman she needed to be in order to fulfill a role that she grew to crave more than anything else. In order to create room for the steely consort-in-waiting, the carefree girl that he married had to be shed like a skin. The lingering stillness that Andrew Parker Bowles left behind is his legacy. It is the quiet of a man who was aware of the rules of the game and who made the decision to protect his family and the institution of the monarchy rather than satisfy any personal desire for vindication. The quiet of someone who saw a very personal experience become a matter of public history and opted to let history have its say comes from the fact that they chose to let history have its say. The narrative of a marriage that did not just end, but was radically redefined by the shadow of the crown, and of a man who, with an unrivaled level of dignity, stood aside and let it all unfold, comes to light in that stillness. However, there is a more complicated reality that lies inside that stillness. He continues to be the only person who really saw everything from the inside, the individual who knew Queen Camilla for a very long time before she ever became a queen. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for now.